Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to tell you about the time that Alex put his hand through a window pane. So just a little backstory. He and I would sit out on the stoop at our first apartment and he'd smoke a cigar, I'd drink a glass of wine, and we would talk, we would fight, mostly fight. And one night he asked me, I had just started working at Applebee's, and there was a guy in there. We're going to name him Corey. Corey reminded me of one of my best friends from high school, so immediately I was drawn to him, but not in a romantic or a sexual way, just like in I really want to get to know you kind of way. And we would talk, Corey and I, we would laugh and joke around, but we were hosts at Applebee's. What else are we going to do? Like, we can't just not interact with each other. Well, Alex would come hang out at Applebee's at the bar, and he started giving me really dirty looks talking to Corey. And I was like, great. So we were sitting on the stoop one night, and he goes, "You're breaking up with me, aren't you?" I said, "No, why? You have a crush on Corey?" I said, "Well, I mean, kind of, but not really, but it's I'll get over it. It's nothing, there's nothing to it." And he goes, "Well, I expect you to stop talking to him." I'm like, okay, we're co-hosts at Applebee's. We have to work as a team. We can't just not talk. He goes, "Well, if I see you laughing with him again, I'm breaking up with you." And that was the usual. Every time we fought, there was a breakup threat. Every single time, even over the littlest things. I should have let him break up with me long before I did. But anyway, there was a time we were at a bowling alley, and we were with two of his friends, and at the time I was only 20, he was almost 22, and he was up at the bar talking to the bartender, and they were laughing kind of a lot, and she would like put his hand on his arm and like bat her eyelashes and all this, that whole thing. And I went up to the bar kind of like, "Hey, are you going to come bowl?" Because it had been his turn for a solid 5 minutes and he still wasn't back. And he's like, "Hold on, just go back." And he's like, "I'll be right there. You can't be up at the bar anyway." And he said to the bartender, she's only 20. And she goes, "Oh, sweetie, you can't be up here." So I was pissed, but I went back to the lane. And eventually he came back, but he went up to the bar 3 or 4 more times. So finally, we were getting ready to leave, and he went to the bathroom. And I went up to the bartender and said, "By the way, I'm his girlfriend." And she goes, "Oh, what an asshole." I later found out she gave him her number. So, of course, I don't know that he cheated on me with her. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he did, but he also would have bragged about it if he had. So, as far as I know, he didn't. But, anyway, he never told me her name, so we're just going to call her Carly. So, there was Corey and there was Carly. So, we were getting ready to go bowling. It was a few weeks later, and he said, I said, we're only going to this bowling alley for one reason. He goes, "What?" I said, "The bartender." He goes, "No, but you're also not coming up to the bar with me." And at that point, I was of age. I said, "That would be like me telling you not to come up to the podium whenever Corey's there." He was livid. We had been walking back to the apartment, and when we got back in there, he slammed the door and he yelled. I'm not going to repeat what he yelled. But he said, "Call 911." And I was really confused because I didn't know what had happened. It turns out he went to slam the door, but instead of having his hand on the door frame, he had his hand on the window pane, and it went clear through. I wrapped 3 or 4 bath towels around his arm, around his hand, until the ambulance got there. And he kept asking me, "Am I going to die?" And I'm like, "No, you're not going to die." And if you ask him, he'll tell you he almost died because he was told in the ambulance they couldn't stop the bleeding. Okay, I don't think they're going to tell you they can't stop the bleeding because that's going to freak you out. I don't know. I've never bled out in the back of an ambulance. And he didn't have to have a blood transfusion. He wasn't, he didn't lose as much blood as he'll tell you he did. I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm just saying he'll tell you it was a lot worse than it really was. So he ended up having surgery, ended up getting a few staples, and he went to physical therapy a few times a week for a couple months. And I went with him a couple times just to see like what his exercises were, if there was anything I could help him with, anything like that. And I remember seeing it the first time because obviously he had it wrapped and he had his arm in a sling for a couple weeks. So I saw it whenever he went to physical therapy, they would change the dressing. So I saw it, and or maybe it was a follow-up appointment, I don't know. But anyway, at one point in time I saw them undress it, and it looked like something out of a horror movie. It was awful, like the stitches, and there was dried blood around it, and it was awful. And they showed me how to bandage it up, and I did it once, and he wouldn't let me do it again, which doesn't make any sense because I didn't do anything wrong. Like, he didn't tell me I did anything wrong. He just preferred that I not be the one to do it. I'm like, okay, whatever. So probably about, I want to say it was like 2 or 3 months of physical therapy, he was finally, in the clear. They had taken the staples out. He was healing pretty well. And he said, he blamed me for it. Like, we got to the ER and they took him back into surgery, and his parents were with me for a while. And, they were asking me what happened, and I gave them the cookie cutter version because I didn't want them to tell them that we were fighting over other people. But they kind of picked up on it because they knew him and they were getting to know me, so they kind of figured that had something to do with it. And I was sitting there in the waiting room by myself because they left. They were there with me for a few hours, and then they left, and they said, if you're, because I was going to stay there for the night. So they said, if you're here, we'll go home. And I stayed with him overnight, and this is going to sound bad, but I really wish I wouldn't have, because I go in there, and he goes, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Because I care and because I love you." And he's like, "Well, it's your fault I'm here." I didn't make you slam the door. Anyway, he was adamant that they hadn't given him any pain medicine. And I knew for a fact they had because I was in there when they did. And it was like 20 minutes later, and he kept saying, "Why isn't anyone giving me pain medicine? Why isn't anyone giving me anything for pain?" And the nurse explained to him several times that they just gave him pain medicine and that they couldn't give it again for, I think, like another 2.5 or 3 hours, something like that. Because I think it's every 4 hours that they can give you pain meds. But he was getting really agitated. And then I grabbed the bedpan because he started throwing up. And he was like, "Why am I so sick?" I'm like, "Because you didn't eat anything. And they're giving you a lot of pain meds. So, you're not going to feel the greatest." So anyway, I went to ask the nurse for another bedpan, and I was out of earshot of him, and I said, "I'm so, so sorry he's acting like this," because he started cursing her out, and I'm just like, she goes, "I know he's in a lot of pain." I said, "But that doesn't excuse the way he's treating you." And I knew if he knew that I said that I would never hear the end of it. Because the entire relationship, I was making excuses for him. But that night, I stayed in the hospital, and he got to a room. I want to say it was like midnight when he got to a room. And I ended up, I'm pretty small, so I was able to do this. But I put 2 chairs together, and they gave me a pillow and a blanket. So I made kind of like a makeshift bed. I didn't really sleep, mostly because of him. He didn't berate me, but he definitely let me know it was my fault. The whole night it was him making comments about it. And it's like, saying what I said didn't help the situation. But again, I didn't make him slam the door. I didn't put his hand through the window pane. That was all him. And one thing, I had a relative ask me, because she was very concerned. She said, has he ever been violent with you? And he has a violent temper. He would throw things, he would break things. He shoved me a few times. He never beat me, he never hit me, nothing like that. He did throw a glass of tea on me one time. That was fun. And then, like I said, he shoved me a couple times. And one of the times, I was like, what the hell? And he goes, well, I thought you were going to hit me. What? Why? I was yelling, yes, but I never raised a hand to him. Nothing like that. Yeah, it was ridiculous. But, no, the only other time he threw something at me, I told him he was just like his dad, and he threw the phone book at me. So, that was, yeah, that was fun. But if I even acted like I was going to do something, he would call the cops on me, or he would do something first, or he would berate me. Like, for instance, and this is a little off topic, but about calling the cops, there was one time we weren't dating at the time. This was after we had decided not to date anymore, after we had decided we weren't even going to be friends anymore. We were just still living together. He found out I was texting another guy, so he took my phone. And when I was trying to wrestle it out of his hand, I ended up scratching him. It was just a tiny little scrape, like barely anything. And he called the cops on me. And he likes to tell them, oh, she's bipolar, or she's got a temper, or whatever. And it's like, that's not helping your case. Making me look bad is not necessarily making yourself look better. And I don't think he ever understood that. So, yeah, I'm rambling now. But if you watch the whole thing, thank you. Be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know down in the comments what you think. Bye.